Manchester United start to the season has been underwhelming to say the least. Faltering on the pitch, faltering off the pitch, a falling share price. Today we debate, are Man United a sinking ship or can they turn it around very quickly and very easily? Roll the intro. Hello and welcome back to the Lost in Possession podcast. If you're here for the first time, do us a quick favour, hit that subscribe button. It takes 2 seconds and you get free football content week in, week out. Let's crack on today with the episode. It is all about Manchester United. As I just said, it has not been an ideal start for Man United by any stretch of the imagination. They've got off the field drama. They've got on the field drama. They've got ownership drama. And it is becoming toxic despite only being 4 or so games in. Reece, let's come to you first. If you were a United fan, would you be concerned right now?
Not right now, no. I think you've got to give it until October, I think, to see where you really are. But two wins, 2 defeats, and this one is those wins weren't too convincing. And realistically, they probably were the better team against Arsenal, and they managed to lose. I would probably say that would concern me, but I think it depends on how the next few games shape out.
Jamie, what's your initial thoughts so far for United this season?
Well, I think it's just crap, really. Like, I would be concerned if you're a United fan. It's nothing positive is coming out of the club at the moment, really. Because like you said, the 2 wins, 2 losses. The 2 wins they had was the 1-0 win over Wolves on the start day of the season. Very, very lucky to get that. Like, even if you ignore the blatant penalty that should have happened in the 90-odd minute, they were very poor performance. Forest that they beat, 2-0 down. Was it within 10 minutes? Something silly like that.
Yeah.
Like, that's not positive. Like, to come back shows they can do it. But you shouldn't be 2-0 down at home so quickly. And especially not even against what's known as one of the top sides. So that's where it's concerning for them. Then it's, the whole Sancho saga after the Arsenal defeat. With the Arsenal defeat, though, before I get into Sancho, it's a very, if that goal was onside from, was it Garnacho? The narrative's winning 3 out of 4. And they can be like, they've not played well and they've won 3 out of 4. Then it looks like it's sort of good mentality. But then you have the defeat. I think sort of when it's the 2-1 that really killed them. The third one, you know what? At that point, you just go for it. You get a point or you concede the third. Goal difference does not really matter to United. Then it's the Sancho thing coming straight out after that, pretty much. That's where it's showing just the toxicity side throughout the club. So you've got the moaning from media, which is mainly Gary Neville, moaning from the fans. Then you've got players and manager disrupting. Like, it's not good news coming at United when they should be thinking, right, we've come third and won a trophy last season, let's push on. And it looks like they've got a step backwards already.
Yeah, I mean, we all said it in our sort of pre-season predictions. We all, I believe, had Man United in the top 4. And we thought with the signings they've made and their performance last year, they'd kick on. But their start to the season, I mean, to answer my own question, I would be extremely concerned right now as a Man United fan. Because somehow you've almost sort of bounced back last season. You can see the ladder, like the steps forward in front of you. They've signed players and somehow it's all just fell apart. Obviously, yes, they've won a couple games, we know, but were they lucky to win both of those? Yes. So, and again, yes, they were unlucky in the Arsenal game, the offside and what have you. But if you look at the bigger picture here, they're not performing on the pitch. You've had a couple of their new signings injured or whatever, or not integrate, whatever. You've then had this Sancho drama. To get this upset in the dressing room after 4 games in the season is baffling. Then you've obviously got the whole Greenwood stuff we've seen in the summer. Again, it's obviously not Man United's fault, but as a result of his actions, it's an awful PR problem for United, however you spin it. There was no right answer for them, obviously, but it's just a disaster for them. You've then got on top of that, and this is all in 4 game weeks, you've then got Anthony being, I believe at this stage they're just allegations, but regardless of that, with the Greenwood drama as well, it's really not looking good for United because it's looking like poor performances, disharmony in the dressing room, and potential players getting, exiled from the squad and potentially convicted. You've then also on top of that got the falling share price. Obviously, fans don't care about that, but plus the Glazers. I know it's early in the season, but I think they're looking at an absolute disaster right now.
Yeah, yeah, it's not good, is it? If you think everything's all come at once, or like it seems to be one thing after the other after the other, it's becoming a bit of a circus. I think it's such a hard one to say because I will defend them in those unconvincing wins a little bit. Like first game of the season, you can't really look too much into that. I know I predicted 4-0, but that's irrelevant.
You weren't the only one, to be fair,
Yeah,
for that game.
Forest have been impressive this season. They narrowly lost to Arsenal and really, could have nicked something, and they beat Chelsea. So we can't really look too much into that. Poor against Spurs, and yes, unlucky against Arsenal. Sometimes, if you don't win well, your luck does run out, right? So yes, it's not the best. Mason Mount hasn't had the effect. I don't think they would have thought so. And these other situations with a PR disaster, I think it's because they're the biggest club in England. It's very easy to have that negativity surround very quick, much quicker. Yes, Chelsea are under a bit of hot water at the moment, but this is Man United we're talking about here, and I think this is what doesn't help everything. It's all top to bottom. It seems to be a little bit rotten. Doesn't look good, and I think Ten Hag really hasn't helped himself by calling Sancho out like that. I don't ever recall Ferguson doing that. I don't recall Pep ever doing things like that either. You should have left it behind, especially with things as they are. Do it behind closed doors.
I think
It's just one, and it's like if you're trying to distract people from what's going on off the field, don't do that. Don't do that. Keep it to yourself, And also, this is a chance for Sancho to try and shine. Maybe he's not ever. Maybe it's finished for him now. I don't know. But they've got a tough run of fixtures coming up. I know I said we can't look too much into it, but at the time of recording, they haven't played Brighton yet. Then it's Bayern Munich away, and it's Burnley away. This is a team that only scored 58 goals in the league last season. It's
lowest out of the big 6. Well, sorry, the top 6 because Chelsea were actually lower.
Yeah, it's
not
pretty,
to rub that in, Jord, but
to finish fourth by scoring only 58 goals, it's actually quite impressive. It does show that they're able to see a game out, I suppose. But everything's all snowballed into one, and it's going to take a long time to not even sweep this under the carpet, but to, pat it all down. It's where are they going to start? They've got to start somewhere and get that sorted, and then move on to the next thing. And it doesn't look like they're going to be able to do that. Everything seems to be prolonging itself.
One thing we didn't even mention was that obviously the circus surrounding sort of having Maguire and Evans on the pitch at one time, and we didn't even mention that, and it just feels like everything at the minute, despite
the fact that we've mentioned so many things and we didn't even mention that.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what it says it all. You've got so much going on.
Yeah. It's not looking good, I'll be honest. And I think they're going to have a rough few weeks, potentially few months. I guess the question I'm looking at is, obviously this is a tough question for us all, but if they had to do one thing right now to turn this, whatever you want to call it, absolute, shit show, I don't know what to call it. It's just a lot of things in one going wrong. What would you guys try and address or sort out first for them to turn it around?
Really, the only way of sorting it out is winning football games because the rest doesn't matter. If Sancho wants to have a strop, but they've won, no one cares. They can go, well, we've won the game. that's what matters. It's a results business, isn't it? I think the Sancho one though, I actually do want to dig him out here because his sort of response was like, "Don't believe everything in the media." Kind of, I'm doing everything I should be doing. Clearly not. If the manager is having you out saying you're not doing enough in training, it's not, yes, I am. It's, okay, what do I need to do more? It's terrible attitude from Sancho in that. Um, he should be. I don't think if it was under Ferguson, he would play another game. But I don't think United at the moment have got probably the overall quality not to play him at some point before at least like January window. So that's sort of like that's a big problem they've got. So they're going to have rotten eggs within that team, and it can just spiral to continuously like if they lose, is he the scapegoat now? Because Maguire, well, let's say Maguire's not playing, is Sancho now the scapegoat? It's kind of it just seems like it's just setting up for more and more disasters. But I think the only way you can solve it is winning games. And like you said, the next two, Brighton and Bayern Munich, they're not the easiest games anymore. And if you lose both of them, it's just going to get even worse, I think. Like, and then you probably could have even the sort of probably not, maybe not, but like the pitch invasion, like they had before the Liverpool game that got cancelled. You're going to have things like that escalating at United, and the media will cover it more and more because, like Reece said, they are the biggest team in the country. They're under a bigger microscope than any other club in England, at least. Like I think the only other clubs that are under more are probably Real Madrid and Barca. It's a bit of a different level because I think if they had something like what Chelsea had last season, it'd be worse. Like Jordan, you probably think it couldn't have got worse, but in terms of media sort of standards, I think it would be. So that's the problem United have got being a big, large club, but they've also been crap, really, for 10 years now. I think they last won it in 2013. So it's not just under Ten Hag that this is going wrong. It's happening for ages, and that's probably where you got to give United credit. I know we probably think going on about the Glazers is a bit too much, but this is why, because it's 10 years on, and they're such a big club who, if they're not winning things, it's unusual for them, especially the Premier League era.
Yeah,
and that's where
I
you
think
can only solve it by winning stuff, but a Carabao Cup is not going to solve your problems. A Premier League might, and maybe a Champions League, but that's because of the size of United.
Yeah, just to build on what Jamie said there, performances are the first, right? You can ignore everything that goes on as long as you're playing well. No one actually cares what's going on behind the scenes. These, yeah, you said 10 years they've not been good or they've underperformed. I think the managers they've appointed, they've either not been ready or they've been divisive figures. Um, so they seem to have sorted that out with Ten Hag. Someone who's come in, he's won things consistently, he's got a way of playing, he knows what he wants to do. He's part of a new modern era. Putting him under pressure now is not going to solve anything. Otherwise, you're just going to keep recycling, rinse and repeat. He's won a League Cup already. People might mock that, but he's won something. Yeah, he's got a step forward. So the immediate thing is to sort the performances out. If you look at that team overall, they're not hard work. Ronaldo was moved in a couple of years back, and that really did damage to a couple of the hard-working players in that team. So off the ball, they're pretty poor. He tries to sort that out. He tries to bring in his own players. He brings in Weghorst. Weghorst doesn't score goals, but he worked very hard. He doesn't need that to be working up front. I think he needs to be working that in the midfield and probably in the defence as well. He seems to be sorting that. Hoyland or Haaland, whatever you want to pronounce him, he's very hard working off the ball. He's a good fix. Garnacho looks like he works pretty hard. I like the look of him. But I don't see Mount working incredibly hard. I don't see Casemiro working very hard. I don't see Fernandes working very hard. They need to have one of them players working their shorts off, really, or socks off, or top off, run the pitch naked, whatever. They need hard-working players. You get that clicking, the team will start to work. But it's going to take time. And it all starts with performances. And I think they just need to stay calm. If they're 7th, 8th in the league around November, it's okay. They just need to let Ten Hag work his thing. Because at the moment, you're just going to rinse and repeat. And that doesn't solve anything for their current situation at this moment in time.
I think that's the problem, though, to touch on your point, that the imbalance in midfield could be part of the problem. Obviously, they brought Mount in. I think he played a couple of games and obviously got injured, but was disappointing. But I think he is the one who's going to do the running in the midfield. The problem is you've got Casemiro who won't, and Bruno who doesn't really press that much.
And he presses, but he presses, I think, erratically, not to a point. He'll press. He might get some of the fans up for it, but he'll be out of position. Yeah. So that's sort of an issue as well. Mount can press, like he has been seen to do that before, but probably it's pointless one person pressing. So that's where I think you need more of a harmony in what they're doing. But that's also difficult if someone's going to, like I said, with Bruno, probably would do it erratically. That causes problems elsewhere.
This isn't a short-term fix. This is going to take a couple of years to progressing through. You know, you could argue that Arteta got a couple of years to start getting it to click. That's what Ten Hag's going to need. Okay, there are a lot of players who are still not good enough. He's brought in some short-term solutions, the Casemiro fix, etc. But it's going to be more of a long-term issue. We're saying, how do Man United do this? Yes, performances. But overall, we need to see if there's an overall, not just winning games, but better performances. They've got to improve. Yes, they scored 58 goals. Okay, score 59 next season. Finish third this season, rather. Don't get thrashed 7-0 away from home. You know, they had a couple of absolute hammerings last season. Sort that out. You're going to go to Anfield, you know, if you're going to lose by 1 goal.
But who do you blame for that? Because you don't see that often. You do not see it often.
You have to blame the manager.
Yeah, you have to blame him for that because his tactics didn't work that day. Yes, he might not still have the squad he wants, but he shouldn't be going there and losing so heavily. You know, realistically, a team finishing in the top 4 should not be losing 2-3 games. You know, I think he lost, was it a 4-0 to Brentford, 7-0, and then a 6-3 to City? That's not good enough, really, for a top 4 team. You can excuse one performance. You can excuse one, but you shouldn't be excusing that 3 times. I will admit, he did make up for it. He beat City and he beat Liverpool at home. I give him his dues there. But you need to improve that. I think he will improve it. Yes, we're not seeing the best performances at the moment, but I don't see them going tomorrow or on the weekend, the next game. I don't see them losing 6-3. I don't see them losing 4-0.
We say that the game, like the reason why we mentioned Maguire and Evans before is because they've got injuries in defence. Like I don't know if Martinez is okay or not. He went off against Arsenal. That's what brought on the whole Evans Maguire sort of back for. But Varane was out. Like Martinez had to go off. Lindelof was injured. So it could be a problem where if they're playing Bayern Munich, they've got Harry Kane up front. Now we've seen he can score a goal or two. Bayern Munich, without Harry Kane, were still a very good side. So they could see that battering because they're away from home first to Bayern Munich. And like last season, it was spoken about, United's record against the top 9 was 0 wins.
Yeah.
One draw.
They've been unlucky with the injuries in a way, but you have to question why their centre-backs getting injured all the time. You know, this must have been the reason Real Madrid sold Varane to them. You know, why are their defenders so injury prone? It's not like they're missing 1 or 2 games. They're out for 4 weeks, 5 weeks. What's going on? You know, either pick fitter defenders.
I think this is why Johnny Evans was bought in. Like it was a very cheap option just to have that backup in case these injuries picked up.
I don't think Evans is the worst option in the world. I would expect leadership from Evans. Yes, he might be older, but
he's the only one, like I said before, he's the only one who's won a Premier League in that squad.
He can still cut it,
which is mad.
Especially against maybe like not as good opposition. I would expect a bit of leadership from him. So I'm not gonna look too much into his performance against Arsenal. I'm not. But I think they need a little bit more of that. You know, I think Go for
But you've got to
players.
also remember they've spent the most money out of everyone over the last,
Oh,
like I
there's
said, 10 years.
something like 900 million their current squad or something like that is worth
But
or
yeah,
something.
I saw a report, yeah, that they've spent the most on their current squad, which is ahead of Chelsea, who have spent 1 billion
And you'd
recently.
say that
Crazy.
because you'd look at those players and go, well, which of them would realistically get into City's team, or realistically, where's the project there? At least with Chelsea's, we can see why it's so expensive because you expect it to last 8 years. You're not seeing that with United's team. You're looking at all of those as a short term, apart from the odd couple.
Yeah,
They,
well, apart
they've,
from
been,
probably the striker.
they've been mismanaged for a long time. You look at the overpriced things they've paid for players, they've they've just
I still think they're still getting it under Ten Hag, because you've got to remember, Anthony was bought in for, I think it was close to like 90 million euros,
Hmm.
and what he's definitely not hit the world on fire. Like
Well,
you
fucking
saw
Sancho.
a goal,
You've got
Sancho, but I don't
you've got
think
160 mil or plus now either exiled or not back at the squad due to allegations. 160 mil of your value just not even in the squad. Like it's
players
crazy.
that are not performing. And this is the thing: is you look and think who is really doing the transfer business, who's doing the scouting here? Because if other clubs aren't going for the player, why should United go for the player? If that makes sense, like who realistically was going for who was really all in for Varane? If it was only United, you have to ask, well, why weren't anyone else interested?
yeah, that was done quite quickly. I remember, like, and
It's,
everyone was like, "Why has other teams not gone in for him?" But
it's very strange. And then you see like Ralph Rangnick apparently recommended, was it Vardigal and all these other players, and you think like, yeah, that's fine. He probably would make a good role person in that role. But who is making these decisions? Who is paying out this money? Because they're spending the money. We can't critique that, but you're not spending it well. There's it's it's a strange one. I just can't put my finger on it. What is going wrong? I think there's definitely a panic all the time of we need to get back. We need to get back.
there is that is the sort of, we need to get back to winning,
And
and there's no
really,
real project for it. Like, there's no long-term project.
they haven't started their project, have they? You thought they had it with Moyes. They got rid of him after a few months. Got rid of Van Gaal after 2 years, which I thought was the wrong decision. Bought in Mourinho, again, divisive, got rid of him after 3 years. Where was the project? You think 10 3 seasons to do it, but let's see how you get on. You've won a cup, you've got in the top four, you've had a good season, a very good season. Let's build on it again. Yes, if we finish sixth, that's fine. We can at least keep rebuilding, keep rebuilding. You know, they have to have that mindset now. They can't.
But I don't think United fans are gonna have that patience.
But that's
And that's not Ten Hag's fault. That's because it's been 10 years and the success they were spoilt with before. And I do sadly see something similar happening with City after Pep goes. It might not, I'm hoping it's not going to be like this, but it's sort of like, once you've had that sort of dominance, now theirs was longer, but whatever. But after, there's going to be a down period, but it's how you pick yourself up after the down period. And they've done an awful job at it. And that's where you've got to look at the Glazers, who are meant to be in charge. Or, well, either way, you've got to look at the Glazers. It's whoever was in charge of dealing with that, but they were appointed by the Glazers. Now, I think that's all gone quiet as well, their takeover. I don't think it's happening. So that's another thing where you've got the sort of, even if they do beat a team, they'll sing. I think after the Forest game, they still were singing their Glazer hate song. I'm not going to repeat any of the words, but like, it's always going to bring a bit of a toxic environment round. And sadly for United fans, it's completely out of their control, because they've done the protests, hasn't happened. They've got close to they've had bids, and it's still not happening. It's something that I think, what you can say in Germany, they do well with the whole ownership stuff. it can backfire a bit in terms of competing globally, but it's a problem that clubs will have under bad ownership. So it's crap for a fan, but I don't know what you can do to get out of that.
Unfortunately, football has changed where that you're not patient anymore. I mean, granted, yeah, you spend £80 million on someone, you expect them to be good, but that's not, you're not going to spend all that money on a Ferrari. Of course, the Ferrari is going to be good. You need to, you need to realize that coaching takes time. You don't get A stars in your exams overnight. It takes time. Ferguson today would never get that time. It took him 4 or 5 years, right? So you have to sometimes just be patient, and more clubs do that. There'll probably be more success shared overall, but I just don't see it happening at this moment in time. It's difficult, really. Ten Hag is in an awful position, but I hope he is given time.
Yeah, I think he will be. I think Ten Hag will be given time. It seems like they've got a good manager. Start of the season might suggest he's lost a bit of his head with the Sancho situation, but for me, I think if he's given time, it will end well. But what end well looks like might just be another Carabao Cup, not competing for the league, Europa, etc. And just
but I don't think that is well as well.
Well, no, this is the problem. Yeah,
for United, it's at least like competing for the Premier League. It's competing for the big trophies, competing for the Champions League, like actually being considered winning it. Because at the moment, people are considering United to come second in the group behind Bayern, and then hopefully not get a bad draw.
Take baby steps, I'd say. The League Cup is a good catalyst to move on. If they win another League Cup, that's great. At the end of the day, they've won more trophies than what Arteta's done. Put it that way, right? It's how they progress from there. You can't just keep going. Okay, we've won the League Cup. There's got to be a progression there, and they've got a chance to do it this season. Even if they drop into Europa League, they've got a chance. Keep the baby steps. Show obvious signs of progression. You don't need to escalate so quick, so far, so quick.
Yeah, and let's just, before we wrap up, let's just give our predictions each on how we see the next 3 months going for them. I'll kick things off. I do see, based on everything we've said, I see it getting worse for them. I don't think these performances are going to improve overnight. I think they're going to have a tough time in some fixtures, like we saw, maybe Brighton. Obviously, this is filmed before, but Bayern, I think I can see them going on a string of 5-10 games struggling, maybe being knocked out a cup or whatever. And I can see the situation worsening throughout the year. For me, I'd be very concerned right now as a United fan. It might turn around this season when they just, as you said, Jamie, like just win football matches. We saw it last season; they can hit form, so it's not out the realms of possibility. But right now, I think the outlook, at least in 3 months, is pretty grim for United.
Well, I'm actually going to disagree. I actually think it's going to be probably bad. I think it's going to be probably a bad week for them. I think Bayern will batter them in at least domination of the game. Maybe not the scoreline, but I do feel like if you look, sort of, we said the next 3 months, so that's towards like the Christmas sort of period. They've got sort of really 2 tough games, which is City at home. Well, forgetting the Bayern Munich one, City at home, and then Newcastle away. Really, up to that's like the 2nd of December. The rest, their games, winnable games. So that's where I feel like they might have a tough week, but the next few months I think will look good, and they'll still be, aiming for the top 4 position, which they should be doing based on their whole squad. But it's not always as simple as that. But I do think they'll be okay and still challenging for Champions League spots. But I think they're well off challenging for the league, which is what they actually want to be doing.
Yeah, I think they'll be okay. I don't think there's any reason to panic. I think maybe Ten Hag might want to change his tactics a bit to play to some of the players' strengths a little bit more. But I think if you see, he'll probably start playing players that actually want to be there. We're going to see more of Garnacho. We're going to see more of this Hoyland. We're going to see, when he's fit, Martinez. The players that want to be there, and you'll see an uplift, a bit of an upturn in a trajectory, but might take time. Don't be bothered if you only beat Burnley 1-0. It doesn't matter. Just show a little bit more resilience, and just navigate the next couple of weeks, and then you can have a platform to build.
Well, there you have it. That wraps us up for another episode. As always, Man United fans in particular, let us know your thoughts. Do you agree with what we said? Do you think the outlook is positive for the next few months? Let us know your thoughts. But as always, like, comment, and subscribe. You know the drill.